Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Red Dragon Archfiend Yugioh deck profile for post the Crimson King structure deck. We got a lot of new Red Dragon Archfiend support in the latest Yu-Gi-Oh structure deck. The deck focuses on what the deck has always done, and that is to summon out the many different Red Dragon Archfiend monsters we have, consisting of an extra deck that is mostly full with the Red Dragon Archfiend monsters and some added support that you could not find from the structure decks. I'm very happy with the new support. It definitely does help with the overall play style of the deck, just letting us use the tuner monsters, which are the resonator monsters, in tandem with the different Archfiend Fiend monsters to summon out our go-to synchro monsters, being the different Red Dragon Archfiend monsters. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For our resonator monsters, we are running 3 copies of the new Soul Resonator. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one level 4 or lower Fiend monster from your deck to your hand, except for Soul Resonator. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except for Dark Synchro monsters. If a card you control be destroyed by a card effect while you control Red Dragon Archfiend or a synchro monster that mentions it, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Instead, you can only use each effect of Soul Resonator once per turn. So on top of being a search card for a good majority of cards we run on the deck, including the new Crimson Gaia, it's also a protection for your Red Dragon Archfiend monsters on the field, so just making it that much more difficult for your opponent to get over some of the many different boss monsters we run for the Red Dragon Archfiend monsters. For the other for the Resonator monsters, we're also running 3 copies of Crimson Resonator. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. If the only other monster you control is exactly one Dark Dragon Synchro monster, you can special summon up to 2 Resonator monsters from your hand or deck, except for Crimson Resonator. You can only use each effect of Crimson Resonator once per turn, and you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Dark Dragon Synchro monsters the turn you activate either of this card's effects. So once again, a great card to utilize the swarm power of the other Resonator monsters we run, including being able to summon out your Soul Resonator onto the field to then gain its additional card effects. And just when this card is special summoned, you can add a card that includes the name of your Red Dragon Archfiend onto the field for that search card, being able to add that lower Fiend monster to your hand to then extend your plays, especially with the newer monster being the Bone Archfiend, which can help to set up even more Resonators in our graveyard. And for the lower numbers for the Resonator monsters, 2 copies of the new Vision Resonator. If a level 5 or higher Dark monster is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Vision Resonator once per turn this way. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 spell or trap that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Vision Resonator once per turn, but you have the search power, thanks to Vision Resonator, to add the cards like Crimson Gaia to your hand, with the search power of this card being able to utilize more search for your cards that mention Red Dragon Archfiend, and also more overall power for that play as well, being able to fully utilize your many different Resonator monsters and then just have an additional extension onto your field via your hand and other cards, since we have easy search power to get the Resonators in our hand thanks to cards like Resonator Call. And then for the lower numbers for our other Resonator monsters, the 1 copy of Chain Resonator, the 1 Creation Resonator, and the 1 Synchron Resonator. If you wanted to run Red Resonator, it's more of a normal summon, special summon play for making use of the Fiend monsters we already have in our hand. You could always take out one of the spells that I'm running in the deck for an additional spot, or you could even drop the Creation Resonator for that one also. But you definitely do want to run the level 1 options for our Resonators in the form of Chain Resonator, and also just the easy special summon power of Creation Resonators for some of the other cards we run in the deck, just being able to special summon out our level 1 Resonators onto the field all the more easily. And for the Archfiend monsters, I run 3 copies of Bone Archfiend. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can send one other card from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon this card. Also, you cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except for Dark Dragon Synchro monsters. And you can target 1 face-up monster you control that has a level. Send 1 Fiend Tuner from your hand or deck to the graveyard. And if you do increase or decrease that monster's level by 1, you can only use each of the effects of Bone Archfiend once per turn. So all you have to do with this card while it is on the field is target that monster and send one fiend monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, so you can send your Resonator monsters to then adjust the level of that other monster that you have on the field to then either lower or increase that monster's level. Meaning if you have your Soul Resonator on the field after you searched out your Archfiend monster with this card and summoned out Bone Archfiend, you can send another Resonator monster to lower the level of Soul Resonator and then go for your synchro play of your Red Rising Dragon, and then use Red Rising Dragon to target the level 2 Resonator that you sent to the graveyard, whether it be your Crimson Resonator, to summon it back onto the field. And I also run the 1 copy of Wandering King Wildwind. You only really need the 1 copy anymore, since you can just search it out with cards like Soul Resonator to your hand to make use of, and then just controlling the Fiend Tuner with 1500 or less attack to special summon this card from your hand. And then you're stuck in synchro summoning, but then during the main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it from your graveyard to add a Fiend Tuner with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand, giving you more search power for all the other Resonators we run to continue your plays from there. I also, very funny, how we got the Escator Dawnwalker in the structure deck, but I find the Supay Duskwalker and Supay to be a much more easier setup for your plays, because then you have access to your Red Rising Dragon with this card needing 1 Fiend Tuner, which is what Supay is, and also the Supay Duskwalker just needing 1 non-tuner monster. Having the discard option means you can also discard cards like your Resonators from your hand to the graveyard, and then just have the special summon of your level 6 synchro play right there, all the more quickly played out onto the field. Also, I think it's funny, once again, they just went for the level 8 play, but this one sets up so much more potential for you to summon out cards with your level 6 options with this lineup. And for the rest of the main deck monsters, the 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, just to have a hand trap available to you if you are dealing with an opponent that goes first against you, so you have answers to respond against any of their searches or setups. And then moving on now to the spells, I run 3 copies of Crimson Gaia. During your main phase, you can add 1 Red Dragon Archfiend or 1 card that mentions it from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except for Crimson Gaia. When your Red Dragon Archfiend declares an attack, you can change all monsters your opponent control to face down defense position. And if a monster on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon 1 Red Dragon Archfiend from your graveyard. You can only use each effect of Crimson Gaia once per turn. So if you made use of a Red Dragon Archfiend for another synchro summon on the field, having that boss monster for the attack, or just another version of Red Dragon Archfiend on the field, or if a monster on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can at least special summon a Red Dragon Archfiend back onto the field as a resource to reuse against your opponent, making it all the more difficult for your opponent just to get over your cards to begin with. I also run 3 copies of Resonator Call, just a great searcher. It's not a once per turn searcher, so you can search out multiple Resonators to your hand, depending on which one you may need, just having access to a card that can start off your plays quite easily in the form of Soul Resonator. And then also 2 copies of Resonator Command. Well, it's good for just more search power on top of the Soul Resonator. It also comes in handy just for additional use of maybe some extra Resonators in your hand that you don't know what to do with, giving you 1 search for an additional Archfiend monster, whether you have the Bone Archfiend searched off of the Soul Resonator and then just being able to add the Wandering King Wildwind off 1 additional play. With the last of the Archfiend support, the 1 copy of the new Absolute Power Force, just being able to give a Red Dragon Archfiend you control 1000 attack. Your opponent can activate card or effects when it attacks. It also has piercing, and battle damage is doubled, and for the fact that this card can be searched off of Crimson Gaia makes it all the better, just being able to add 1 Red Dragon Archfiend or 1 card that mentions it, so you can add Absolute Power Force to your hand also. And for more generic spells, 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent and 2 copies of Pot of Prosperity, just for more resource extension. If you have a specific play you want to go for, there are plenty of options to banish with Pot of Prosperity. We are running multiple copies of Red Rising Dragon. You normally will only need the 1, and if you don't have any of the cards to extend your play, that's where this card comes in handy. Or if your opponent tries to stop you with any of their hand traps, more draw power in the form of Triple Tactics Talent, or even just being able to take one of your opponent's resources to use for your own for a summon. And then also the 1 copy of Call by the Grave, once again to stop their own hand traps so you can extend your plays. For the traps, we're running 1 copy of Red Zone. When your opponent activates a card effect while you control Red Dragon Archfiend or a Synchro monster that mentions it, you can target 1 card on the field, destroy it, and you can target one of your banished Dark Dragon Synchro monsters and special summon it. You can only use each effect of Red Zone once per turn, another target for Crimson Gaia, to then have set up on the field, which is nice to have some pretty good destruction power, just being when your opponent activates a card or effect while you control Red Dragon Archfiend or the Synchro monster that mentions it, having a destruction of your opponent's card that they'll have to work around on top of the big Red Dragon Archfiend boss monster you have on the field also, with the last of the traps just being 3 infinite impermanents on top of the Ash Blossom, just another hand trap to fully utilize, stopping your opponent's card effects even if they go first against you, since you can activate infinite impermanents on their turn if you control no other cards. Moving on now to the extra deck. For the extra deck, it's completely Synchro monsters, as the deck is meant to be played. For the new Red Dragon Archfiend, we're running 1 copy of Scarred Dragon Archfiend. Its name becomes Red Dragon Archfiend while on the field or in the graveyard. If it's sent from the monsters under the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Red Dragon Archfiend from your extra deck. This is treated as a Synchro summon. Then if this card was sent to the graveyard for Synchro material of a Dark Dragon Synchro monster, you can destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. So while having the initial destruction play of what Red Dragon Archfiend was meant to do, you also have the option to special summon out Red Dragon Archfiend, which we're running 1 copy of as well, and also 1 copy of Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, which also counts in name as Red Dragon Archfiend, just as a more destruction play. You have to run the original Red Dragon Archfiend though now, so you have the target to special summon off of Scarred Dragon Archfiend from the extra decks, and Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend only counts as Red Dragon Archfiend while on the field or in the graveyard, not while in the extra deck. And we're also running 3 copies of Red Rising Dragon. You'll rely on this card for the majority of your plays to summon out Red Dragon Archfiend. When it's Synchro Summoned, you can target 1 Resonator monster in your graveyard and special summon it. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck the turn you activate this effect, except for Dark Dragon Synchro monsters. And during your main phase, except the turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard to target 2 level 1 Resonator monsters in your graveyard and special summon them, giving you those Resonators that I spoke of before for the level 1 targets to be able to summon back onto the field. And then also the 2 copies of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss Bane and the 1 copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane for the additional setup for your Red Dragon Archfiend monsters and tuners on the field to then get out your bigger Red Dragon Archfiend boss monsters, including the 1 Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend, the 1 Red Supernova Dragon, the 1 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity, and the 1 Red Nova Dragon. Bigger boss monsters, all in the different forms depending on which one you want out for the specific play, like the shutdown power of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity, the attack boosting Red Nova Dragon, the incredible boss monster with 3 tuners, Red Supernova Dragon, and then the anime counterpart from Arc 5, Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend, which was not included as a reprint in the structure deck, so just another boss monster that you could potentially replace with an additional monster like a generic synchro option to pull in for this spot. And for the rest of the extra deck, 1 copy of the new Koi Belt, the Blade Dragon from Duelist Nexus for more destruction powered and a level 7 synchro monster as an option to have with our level 4 Archfiends and level 3 Resonator monsters, and the 1 copy of Baron de Fleur. You can make this card as long as you're not restricted for any of your plays, which can be done when you have your level 8 Archfiend monster and the additional level 2 tuner. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, a lot of it resolves just around the new Archfiend Soul Resonator. If you just have this, or even one of our searchers to add this card from our deck to the hand, you have the special summon play of this card, which can also be searched off of Crimson Gaia, as I stated before. So then you just summon out your Soul Resonator, and when it's normal or special summon, you can add 1 level 4 lower Fiend monster from your deck to your hand. So then you'll add your Bone Archfiend to your hand, and then also with this card being in your hand, you send 1 other card from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon this card. So then you just have to send 1 additional card from your hand, it could be 1 random card, to the graveyard to special summon out your Bone Archfiend onto the field. And then you can target a face-up monster you control that has a level. So you can target your Soul Resonator, send 1 Fiend Tuner from your hand or deck to the graveyard to increase or decrease that monster's level by 1. So then you'll send your Crimson Resonator to the graveyard with this play, being able to then adjust that monster's level to 2 for that play, or you can even go for Vision Resonator for that summon, because then when it's sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 spell or trap that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend from your deck to your hand, having that search as one of the sent cards off of your monster. It all depends on what you want to summon back onto the field as well. For this play, you'll get the search with your Vision Resonator, but if you have the Crimson Resonator, you'll have 1 extension play to go into. Now that your Soul Resonator is a level 2, you can go for a level 6 synchro play to summon out your Red Rising Dragon onto the field. Then you can target a Resonator monster in your graveyard and and special summon it. So then you can summon back the Crimson Resonator you sent to adjust the Soul Resonator in your graveyard's level as well. And then with this card, if the only other monster you control is exactly one Dark Dragon Synchro monster, you can special summon up to 2 Resonator monsters from your hand or deck, except for Crimson Resonator. So then you can use Crimson Resonator to then summon out the additional Resonator monsters to the field. So then with that, you can even grab the Vision Resonator from this play if you wish, or go for the other additional summon of your level 1 Chain Resonator, and then the additional summon of your Creation Resonator onto the field. You then use your Crimson Resonator and your Red Rising Dragon for your level 8 synchro play, summoning out your Scarred Red Dragon Archfiend onto the field. And then with this card being able to have the option, if it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material for a Dark Dragon synchro monster, you'll have the Destruction play. So then you can go for the level 12 synchro play using these monsters on the field to summon out your, or at least my favorite boss monster, or your one of your choice, your Heart Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity, or your Red Nova Dragon, having the initial Destruction play when you send your Scarred Red Dragon Archfiend to destroy all face-up attack position monsters your opponent controls, and then having this bigger boss monster on the field to then swing into your opponent, with you having the option of up to 4 different Resonator monsters to have your Red Nova Dragon gain the additional 2,000 attack, or the shutdown of your opponent thanks to cards like Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy. Like I said, very happy with the new support we got for the Red Dragon Archfiend deck. It definitely does add a lot for the playstyle and what you can do to set up the many different Red Dragon Archfiend monsters we have in the deck. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.